I am finally doing a video that I've been saying that I have wanted to do since sometime last year. I'm finally doing a tutorial on how I draw faces. Now I will say that for a long time, I never thought it made sense for me to do a video like how I draw faces because I kind of just wing it. It's not the kind of process like you learn in art classes and illustration classes and life drawing classes. You know, this really might be the worst art tutorial you've ever seen in your life. I am so sorry. Let's get started. Okay, so every drawing, I always start with a circle. The circle right here pretty much represents like this right here on her. So I know that her nose is probably gonna go right here. And sometimes I will actually go ahead and add just a circle right there. And then I go ahead and I add in the jawline. And I do a circle for the chin. And sometimes, like once I get one side of the jaw done, I'll kind of just do a quick little line across just to see where it's gonna curve. So I can kind of get it in the same spot. And then connect it up. All right. And then I feel like I want to go ahead and put kind of just the ears in. And so I'll just kind of look at this. It looks like it goes just above like her, like right here, her nose. So I would just, you know, do that and then just quickly put a shape in. Okay, now I don't know why, but I haven't even put in like the eyes or the lips yet, and yet I want to go ahead and kind of start to do the nose. So it kind of is like, it's a U, but hers is a little sharper, which I like. I don't know what it is, but I love drawing noses. And then the nostrils, which so I don't actually draw like the whole like that, you know. I pretty much just do the top and connect it to this center piece right here. And then I do just a little bit on that side. And then after that, the rest of the shape is kind of made out of the shading of it. And I'm just putting a circle here because to me that indicates like that's the cute little, like the cute little ball of her nose, you know? Now she is kind of at a slight angle, just very slightly, but it's not straight on. But I am actually okay with just kind of making this drawing a little straight on. So her nose will be pretty symmetrical. And then the nostrils. She's got a very distinct, right there. All right. So I would definitely be using my shading and highlighting to really emphasize, like she's got a very cute little like kind of a turned up little button nose. I love her nose, and so I will definitely use the shading and highlighting to make sure that this right here is very much highlighted and then the rest of this is like in shadow. Again, I know it doesn't make sense. She doesn't even have eyes yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the lips. I always start with the Cupid's bow. And I just do a very wide V or U. And then I look and see, so corners of her mouth like that, if you were to take a line straight up, that just really helps me to see like how far out are the corners of her mouth from like her nostrils or the corners of her eyes. I'm able to kind of like, okay, so corner of her mouth would be like, and then I'm gonna go ahead connect, and then bottom lip. So sometimes I will put in like the rest of the mouth, but I sometimes find that that just makes it look very closed up. And so I don't like it to be too dark. Because when I actually like color it in and stuff, these edges right here are going to be blended. You won't see a really, distinct line. Sometimes I kind of feel like if I add that line, it sort of throws things off. But if anything, if I'm going to add a line, it's usually on the top lip, and then I just leave the bottom open on the sides. Now that we know where the lips are and where they fall to the eyes, I'm gonna go ahead. I kind of just eye it. So like if you want, you can kind of see like where did they land on the ears, or how, like if you can tell how much space is in between the bottom of the nose and the eyes. To me, I always kind of just eye it. Typically, what I find, and it's not always the case, every single person's face is different, but I often find that the corner of the eyes will match up with the edge of the nostril. So I'm just gonna do like a very light line. Okay, so it'll be steeper here, and then it'll kind of start to flatten out here, on her at least. I feel like that's kind of typically how I draw eyes anyway. And then this just really helps me. Instead of just like having the line stop there, I like to go ahead and just kind of create a lash and kind of put some lashes in. I don't know why, but that really helps me to see the shape a little bit better. Okay. And then I tend to put more I tend to make the lines stronger on the top, and then on the bottom, just the inner corner and a little bit on the outer corner. That's like pretty steep, so I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of do it almost like straight down from there. And then same with the mouth. I don't really like to connect the bottom too strongly, because I feel like it just closes up the sketch and starts to, I don't know, it just doesn't look quite right. I actually feel like it comes down just a little more. She's got kind of big doe eyes, so I just want to make sure. All right, and then again, so see, I didn't fully close off the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead, and I always draw the lashes. I don't actually, when I'm doing the rough sketch, I don't draw the lashes straight from this line right here, because it's almost like I'm kind of compensating for the water line. So this would be kind of like the inner part of the eye, and then there would be some space to indicate like the water line. Okay, I always find that the eye crease can really change the way a face looks. Some people, like for me, the crease of my eye, it actually goes way in here and then comes up and out like that. Whereas hers, it is very much open. There's actually space right here between the lash line and the crease. For some people, you know, they have monolids. Some people, it's like very, very steep here and then kind of starts to come down. For some people, it's, you know, it's a lot steeper in the center. So the crease of the eye, pay attention to the shape and the spacing of the crease, because you can really just like, you don't even have to copy the reference. You can just play around with the spacing and like how steep it is, and it will totally change the look of your drawing. But I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna kind of match hers on my drawing. So there's lots of space here. Oh. Kind of just follows her line, her eye line, like that. But I feel like that's just a tad too strong. And then I like to add in the tear duct. Okay. I'm just going to kind of thicken up this area. I could do that. There's the eye. But lashes actually can sometimes like come down over the eyes, and I feel like that just really adds to the thickness, and it makes it look like they are actually attached to the eye rather than just kind of like floating there, sticking off of the eye. It just kind of, I don't know, just looks more, makes them look fluffy, more real. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add in this eyebrow. So her eyebrow comes in a little further than the tear duct. So, but I think for my drawing, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of, I'm just gonna kind of line it up with the tear duct slightly. So I just kind of go ahead and I add in like fluffy hairs like this. And so it's like here, I'm going up, and then as I go along, when I'm starting to get close to the arch, I start to kind of, it's like at a diagonal, and then it starts to go sideways. And then I will go ahead and add just kind of a more distinct line on the bottom of the eyebrow. Just kind of darken it up. It's honestly probably a bit much. And I like to just go ahead and use the same eraser as the pencil. And then I pretty much only like define the outer corner. I like to make the outer corner a little darker than the rest. If it were just me drawing this and I wasn't making a video, I would go ahead and I would take this whole thing, because I went ahead and I just drew the face like straight on. So I would just select this, copy paste. Now that is on a new layer. Take it, flip it horizontally, and move it over here. Whenever there was just the one eye and eyebrow, to me, it looked like the spacing was pretty good. But then when I add in the other eye and eyebrow, you can start to see, whoa, these are really, really close together. So that's when I would go ahead and just separate them a bit, which would then mean that the eyebrows are probably, like, I would just liquefy and bring the eyebrows in a bit, because otherwise it looks like they're gonna be sticking off of the face. I made her eyebrows kind of mean, whereas she looks very sweet in the picture. Now, I kind of feel like, though, because some of you watching, you might not have, you know, an iPad, or you might not do digital art. You want to do this with pencil and paper. In honor of all of you, but I'm going to actually go ahead and draw it by hand, because I feel like that's only fair, you know. So that I ended up moving it slightly away from the inner corner of the nose. So I'm going to kind of just eye it This ended up coming kind of away from where I had it starting originally. So I'm gonna do the same over here and just make sure it's kind of lined up. Okay. And don't forget, eyelashes don't all go here. Like if this is an eye right here, they don't all go this way. The outer corner goes out. Then as you go to the center, it's gonna kind of be centered, and then this way. So as you're going from each side, you're going to change the direction of the eyelash. And just remember, it's a rough sketch. Like, you do not have to make your rough sketch look pretty. Like, remember, a lot of the times the rough sketch, it's called a rough sketch for a reason. Let it be rough. Like, enjoy the messiness of it. That's the most fun part, is the messy part. And like, I actually really love the look of the lines all crossing through the face and stuff. I don't know, something about it is just like, it almost like adds to it. The ears actually more so line up. Sometimes I have to do this and do it way out to really be able to see what I'm looking at. All right, so I think that is about where. And then it's the rest of the head is going to be even higher up like that. Keep in mind, if you like to kind of do more stylized drawings, like not everything is going to necessarily be anatomically correct. You might like to do really big eyes, really big lips, really tiny nose. It's something that isn't typically how anatomy is on a human. I do know that I tend to draw chins, I think, a little smaller than most chins probably are, but then I sometimes will go in and liquefy it and just bring it down. What I'm actually going to do now is I am going to utilize the digital aspects of digital art. Okay, so I'm going to take this layer. I think I'm going to make it just slightly bigger. Okay, and sometimes I like to, even though I'm not gonna actually add this into the final sketch, sometimes I like to go ahead and kind of add in like sort of the direction that the hair is going, because it just kind of, I don't know, something about it helps me visualize it a little better, and it kind of helps me to see like, okay, does that look like enough like head space? Okay. Oh wait, actually that side does not go in that way. It comes out this way, or it kind of comes down. And then I'm just gonna very like roughly add in sort of like shoulder shape and all that. I don't think that's necessarily where it is, but that might not even be like the pose that I want to do. And usually with these drawings, like I'm gonna turn this into a painting, and usually what I do is I just like kind of cut it off there, or I cut it like that, so I might not even need most of this anyway, but sometimes I just put it in to kind of help me, like, again, to visualize. Okay. And then if that was like that. Now I'm gonna start utilizing the digital part of digital art. So to people with pencil and paper, I'm sorry. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip this horizontally. So I kind of, without meaning to, I think I kind of actually put her at an angle anyway, kind of like the picture, but it was more an accident. And the thing is, it's kind of like her face shape and even kind of her eyes are at an angle, but her nose is still straight on. So I need to pick, do I want her looking at an angle or do I want her to be straight on? So I flipped it. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to see where things kind of got skewed, distorted, kind of out of alignment. Maybe things started to shift to a certain side. And with paper, what you can do is you can hold it up to a light and flip it and look at it from the back of the paper and try to see through it. You can flip it and look at it through a mirror. Or I have actually heard Jacob's aunt said that in art class, they were taught to flip it upside down. So you've got a few options there. Let's see, I think it was this eye. So like, I just want to match these two eyes. So this side needs to come up a little bit. And I think this maybe needs to be a little bit steeper. Maybe not. Yeah, actually, yeah. Okay. And then I'm actually gonna bring this tear duct down just a little bit. And this eyebrow, I feel like is just a slight bit like odd compared to this one. And that is when my microphone died and I continued to talk through the entire rest of the video and nobody could hear me. So it's editing Leslie. Here we go. Okay, so basically you're just gonna see me getting really, really nitpicky with everything that I'm editing and liquefying, and I'm gonna be pushing and pulling just wherever I feel is necessary. It really, really does come down to just me being super nitpicky. So you can see that I am like adjusting the jawline, trying to make it a little more substantial and make it not look like it could just snap. But then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to adjust the lip size. So I personally like to make the lips a little bit larger. Oh, I love a good before and after. So I'm selecting the lips and then I am going to, instead of it being a uniform transform, it's going to be freeform. And then that allows me to do like, just make it taller, make it wider. And so I always make it taller, but I don't change the width of the lips. I like to make basically like the lips thicker, but I don't want to make the mouth wider. So that's just kind of a style preference that I like to do. I like to do slightly larger lips. And then I adjusted the eye, just make sure that they were even and that like if I did a line straight across that they would match up. And then I'm cleaning up the line so that I can really start to see a little bit better what needs to change or be adjusted. So as you can see, I'm kind of like changing the spacing between the eye and the edge of the face because one side of the face there was more space between the eye and the edge than the other. So I'm just kind of evening that out, going back in, just making sure that everything looks symmetrical, adjusting the eye again. It really is just a lot of me playing around and seeing, you know, should I change this? Should I change that? And sometimes I keep what I change and then other times I don't. So here I noticed that one nostril was like a little more of a sharp curve and then the other one was more rounded, so I'm just making it more sharp. One thing that I like to do is I like to mix curves and roundness with like sharp edges. So a lot of the times what I find is I will make the lips and the eyes very like rounded, and then I make the nose kind of more angular and sharper edges and have more of like corners rather than curves. I just really like a good mix. I think it kind of makes it a little more harmonious, and I don't know, just in my opinion, it looks better. So something that I do notice is a lot of the times I will kind of start off with the face being a lot more like narrow. And so it really helps if I go in and I basically just widen things and kind of give the face a little more space, basically. And so I'll kind of like widen around the cheekbone area. Sometimes I'll bring down the chin a little bit, because I oftentimes will originally draw the chin really so small that it looks like it could just snap right off. But I will say, one of the things about my style that I've noticed is that I tend to draw all of the features a lot larger in comparison to the actual size of the face and head. So if you look at the picture of the girl, there's a lot more face to her, as in there's a lot more just skin area. Whereas when I'm drawing, I like to kind of fill up the entire face area with the features, even though that's not really, realistic to an actual face. But that's just kind of part of my style. I like to have more facial features on the face. And then, as you saw, I did make like the hair area, so where the hair is on the head, I made that a little bit bigger, and it made a huge difference. And again, like, look at that. The difference is, it's so big. Now, if I hadn't done that before, I still think it would have looked good. But then once I did make it larger, it was like, oh, this looks so much better. It just looks more established. It looks more, the only word I can think of is like substantial and like robust. It doesn't look like, she's gonna just break in half because I drew her so small and dainty. When I was first starting out, something that I did a lot is I would make the nose really, really tiny, but not in a stylized way. It was always kind of accidental. And I started to learn how to draw the nose a little more proportional to the rest of the features. And even though the features are enlarged on the face compared to real human anatomy, I do like to make the nose a little bit bigger because it just looks more, I don't know, it just looks more balanced in my drawings. And I love the artists that do the really big eyes, really big lips, and a teeny tiny nose, but anytime I try to do that, it looks so weird and just off. So I also really love drawing noses. So I actually like to make the nose, kind of big like the eyes and the lips. But in the beginning, I noticed that my noses, they just looked like, a breeze would blow them off. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about how I do my final line art, I actually did kind of like a walkthrough of the basic stuff that I follow when it comes to the line art. In one of my Vlogmas videos, I will put it here. It's when I was drawing Patrick Mahomes, and I kind of just talked a lot about bone structure and how that determines the thickness of the line that I choose. And if lines are meeting up, then I will kind of thicken that area as well. So you can go check that video out, and I do a real-time walkthrough of kind of just how I decide to draw my final line art. And I will say this, I used to totally just disregard line art. I did not think it was that important because I was like, well, I'm going to color over this. A lot of these lines are not going to make it in the final piece. So I don't need to take much time. When I started taking more time on the line art and really adding in detail and putting focus on the line art, my art got so much better. If you are starting off your art with a really strong foundation of line art, it's going to really, really help to elevate your art and just make it so much better during the coloring process. Ta-da! And she's done. My shirt matches these lights. Well, as you can see, it's been a day. Y'all, cross your fingers that the second half of this video has gone well. You will have seen it by now. Really hope that I am able to remember all of the tips that I was telling you guys when my microphone decided to cut out. I hope you guys like this video. I hope it helped you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!